Jordan is the unanimous MVP, got all 11 votes.
South Carolina, but police have refused any comment. 4 people have been arrested for stripping and stealing the elder Jordan's car found last week in Fayetteville, North Carolina.
He was shot to death while in his car and was taken to the state of South Carolina and placed into the swamp where he was found.
To bring you the latest information we have on the arrest of 2 suspects in the murder of James Jordan. Now, private funeral services will be held this afternoon in Wallace, North Carolina.
Everyone knows exactly what the circumstances are right now in terms of my decision not to play the game of basketball in the NBA. Doesn't mean I'm not going to play basketball somewhere else, but talked to David Stern as of yesterday and even today, and I'm very solid with my decision of not to play the game of basketball in the NBA. Reasoning being, I've heard a lot of different speculations about my reasons for not playing.
Michael Jordan, the player considered to be one of the greatest to ever play the game, the man that not only loved to win but humiliate and dominate his opponents. He saw himself as the best and refused to be compared by others as he felt he was in a league of his own. Leading the Chicago Bulls to a three-peat, and not only once, but twice. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, at the top of his game, left the sport of basketball after winning his first three-peat in 1993, announcing his retirement before training camp for the 93-94 NBA season. Today we are going to dive into the conspiracy behind his retirement and the sudden death of James Jordan. Why the sudden retirement? Why retire when you are at the top of your game? After the 1992-93 title was won by the Bulls, the 9th of June, a little bit more than 1 week after that, James Jordan, the father of Michael Jordan, suddenly disappeared, went missing for more than 6 to 7 weeks. It had appeared that James was shot to death and were found in a creek by a fisherman, near McCall, SC, but even if the body was found at the time, wasn't directly identified. Was identified through dental records as his body was in a state of extreme decomposition, and was identified 10 days later, 13 of August. The car James was driving was a red Lexus SC 400, which was a car Michael recently bought for his father. Which was the car he was killed in. The car was found in Fayetteville, North Carolina, 60 miles away from the body, and had a broken window. James was on his way back to Chicago before he died, went to a former co-worker's funeral and was driving from Charlotte, and pulled over to take a nap in the car. James Jordan was not only Michael's father, but was also his best friend in life, as they were really close friends. So he must have been devastated. He went to Oprah Winfrey's show and talked about the incident about his father, where Oprah asked him, "Would you like to confront the men that killed your father?" Jordan answered, "I haven't gotten to that stage yet. It's been a very tough time for me to deal with it. I don't have any feelings against him yet, because it has not really sunk in yet." He also stated that it would probably hurt me even more just to know their reasons, as he felt that the reason why they killed him would just be a dumb one. Michael Jordan retired from the sport of basketball before the season of 93-94 and was a shock to a lot of people, but Oprah asked him if it had anything to do with his father's death, but he said that Michael and his father had been talking about this for a while and that James wanted Michael to leave basketball after the first championship, Michael revealed, but was really happy that his father got to see him play the last time, when they won a championship. His father was a huge fan of baseball, and that was the sport Michael's father originally wanted for him to play, so that was a big factor for Michael, wanting to honor his father. But was there another reason behind the retirement? As Michael was notorious for his basketball career, everyone that has been following his career also knows that Michael Jordan was a huge gambler, gambling on everything he could bet on with friends and teammates and so on. He has even placed bets up to $100,000 on a game of rock, paper and scissors. He would be willing to bet on anything. He even placed a bet about luggage with his teammates on a plane, betting that his luggage would be the first one to come out of the plane. His teammates from the Olympics, USA team, was on the bet as they were waiting for the luggage in Portland, and to a pleasant surprise, Jordan's luggage came out first and won $900, but later revealed he paid off his staff to get his luggage first. But Michael never considered himself as a person with gambling problem. He insisted that the addiction was to competition, that he was so competitive as an individual, which I guess seems accurate as well, but could also be an excuse to the fact that he had an actual gambling problem. Michael Jordan could spend late nights out gambling before important games. He was caught gambling a really late night in Atlantic City on the evening of Game 2 in the finals against the New York Knicks. Michael Jordan and James "Slim" Bowler used to play golf a lot together. They used to gamble a lot in the golf course, and it could get very intense. James Bowler won $57,000 off Michael Jordan's hands in a 3-day weekend. As it had turned out, Bowler was a golf hustler and a mule to a drug kingpin, getting arrested for money laundering, and had been arrested 2 times before for a small possession of cocaine during the 80s, had faced a mandatory life sentence if he was convicted of the 1 count of conspiring to distribute more than 11 pounds of cocaine. As he was arrested in 1991, they found the check with Michael Jordan's name on it, with a $57,000 as an amount on the check, which he had paid the infamous Charlotte narcotics and trafficker for bets he had lost. When investigators questioned Michael Jordan, he lied to them and said it was a loan. Before the 1992-93 NBA season was about to start, Michael was called upon to testify at Slim Bowler's federal trial. He came to admit that the $57,000 check they had found was Michael paying off a debt from gambling, but lied because he was embarrassed and wanted to avoid association to Slim's reputation. After Bowler's money laundering conviction, he had to pay $194,730 at issue to the government, which meant that Bowler will never get to possess the $57,000 Michael Jordan gave him as a check. Jordan and Bowler played on 10 different occasions, according to Michael. He even skipped a trip to the White House to play golf with Slim Bowler at the Hilton Head Pro-Am, to play a high-stakes tournament. According to FBI documents, Slim Bowler ran gambling and drug rackets out of the Golf Tech Pro Shop in Monroe, North Carolina. Bowler hustled on the driving range and the golf course at Monroe Country Club and maintained a coke and numbers lottery business with Charlotte drug world figures James Johnson and Herman Givens. Per court filings, Bowler traveled around the country in the 1980s and early 1990s, staging pro-am tournaments and golf charity events headlined by NBA, NFL and pro boxing superstars he would bring with him, and where he would hustle high rollers out of their money on the course over 72 holes. Slim Bowler was caught by an FBI wire where he talked about how he would launder the money that Michael had given him, so that the government wouldn't notice the money. A few months later, Nettie Johnson flipped on him and snitched Bowler out, telling the feds that he and Pee Wee Givens had brought drugs from him and laundered cocaine and lottery proceeds. The jury deliberated about 4 hours before convicting Bowler of 5 counts of money laundering and 1 count of gun possession by a felon. The money laundering charges involved allegations Bowler returned from Texas in 1990 with $153,730 in drug money and put a $41,000 Mercedes-Benz in his name so a major drug dealer could conceal the car from authorities. Bowler was acquitted of the drugs charges though, but got 8 years for money laundering and was released. Could it be that Michael had too much in debt for gambling, leading to his father's death? He has proven to be associated with some sketchy types, and high-stakes gamblers aren't always the nicest types to be around. But there is a lot more to this, besides valor. As we all already know, in the early 90s Michael and the Bulls won their first three-peat. But what was strange is the sudden retirement. What we know is that it supposedly was the plan all along, that Michael would one day play baseball instead of basketball, and what pushed it could have been the fact that his father was shot to death that year. But leaving the game when you are at the top of your career just doesn't seem right, despite everything. He was literally the face of the organization, so is it possible that David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, wanted to suspend him until everything had been settled down? Well, in Michael Jordan's statement when he announced his retirement, he said 5 years down the road, if the urge comes back, if the Bulls will have me, if David Stern lets me back in the league, I may come back. Now why would David Stern not allow the face of the franchise, the greatest of all time, to return to the NBA, unless there was a reason in the first place that wouldn't allow Jordan to come back? There is a possibility that David told Michael to retire as a distraction so he didn't have to publicly be suspended and ruin his reputation, which isn't a stupid idea, considering the circumstances. Maybe therefore deciding to play baseball. Stern denies all these claims, expressing disgust regarding these allegations, but if all these claims would have been true, they would never admit it. A few months prior, the NBA launched an investigation regarding his gambling if he had violated any policies in the NBA, but claims that Jordan was innocent. Jordan retiring at the age of 30 with the competitive mindset he had just doesn't seem right, as he would have wanted to win more. He talked about winning a lot more championships, but claims to have been exhausted by everything, the fame and the pressure. But even a great athlete like Michael Jordan could be exhausted mentally. He is human after all, and just lost his best friend too. Now was also another man that Jordan was associated with, who appeared to be questionable. He was a man that controlled a ramshackle empire of office buildings, businesses and small-town nightclubs, but his main line of work was as a bail bondsman, paying for accused criminals' freedom. Eddie Dow supposedly always had a stainless steel briefcase with a revolver with him every day. He allegedly recruited these people to be bouncers for him or errand runners and took them under his wing. On February 19th of 1992, one of his errand runners had turned on Dow and went to Dow's house with 3 other men and gunned him down, and took his briefcase with money in it. The briefcase allegedly had $20,000 inside and left documents left in the briefcase. When the authorities collected Dow's things, they found 3 checks from Michael Jordan with a total of $108,000. Michael claimed that he was just paying off some gambling debts, which isn't illegal but is another added proof that Jordan was associated with some questionable people. Michael Franzese, a former crime boss who worked with the NBA at the time and talked to players about gambling, he was hired as a speaker to talk to the rookies about the dangers of gambling, and when he was asked if he knew anything about the Jordan situation, he said that he did not have first-hand knowledge, but he had heard that he was forced to leave by the NBA as they knew that the gambling and death of his father would create a lot of heat and press in the NBA organization and didn't want to deal with that. Michael Franzese has also said that he does not believe that it's mafia-related and that it is just in fact a crazy coincidence. But he was told by someone who he knew very well from inside in the NBA, so it seems credible that he was told to leave. Not because his gambling problems were the reason behind his father's death, but it was just too much heat for the organization as a whole. But the plan was for Michael to return the whole time. As mentioned earlier, according to Michael Jordan himself, the desire for playing basketball had vanished and he felt as he had nothing more to give the game. So he announced his retirement and announced he was going to pursue his long-time dream to become a professional baseball player, which his father always dreamt about too. Jordan said that the death of his father prior had an impact on the decision that he had made at the time. But the fact that Michael's father was murdered in that Britain matter, people instantly associated it with the mob and his gambling. Michael started his journey as a baseball player in 1994, where he signed with the Chicago White Sox, and the White Sox had the same owner of the Chicago Bulls, Jerry Reinsdorf, who helped Michael. He played in the minor leagues. He worked hard and had a hard time, but eventually became a decent player.
Look at this. Come on now.
The alley in left center field. Jordan extra bases.
Tied up the ball game with a ground double to left. And this crowd has seen what it came here for. And everybody's...
Jerry Reinsdorf honored Michael with the same contract as when he played for the Bulls, so had the same salary playing in the minor leagues. But could it be that Jerry honored the contract because he knew MJ would come back eventually because of the secret suspension? Another person Michael was associated with was Richard Esquinas, a man whom he used to play golf with. Richard released a book about his gambling addiction and Michael Jordan, titled Me and Michael Jordan Our Gambling Addiction, My Cry for Help, where he talked about how intense their golf games could be and how intense they would gamble against each other. He said that the wager was $1,000 per hole. Richard also claimed that Michael at one point stacked up a debt of $1.2 million. It had allegedly started with the debt being around $153,000, playing a double or nothing until it reached $1.2 million, but bargained for a $300,000 debt instead, which Esquinas agreed upon. According to Mike, though, he only owed him $300,000 and that Richard was straight up telling lies because he wanted his book to sell. Since then, Richard Esquinas has responded to these claims, saying that nothing that he has written in the book is false information. It's true, and it is Esquinas' perspective of the subject in matter. He also stated, "I told the truth. It hurt Michael, and for that hurt, I'm sorry," but also saying that he doesn't regret his past. He also talked about how competitive Michael is and that he noticed intense stress from the tenacious competition in his life, in which he shared with Esquinas, and that's why the golf and gambling got so intense. Richard lastly challenged him to an 18-hole game of golf, a grudge match, he stated. But the book and Richard are another testament to the crazy gambling activities Michael Jordan would indulge in, as he points out that it's not the gambling that is the problem, he has a winning problem. Which is accurate if you know how he plays the game of basketball and his mentality. You can see that he is obsessed with winning, but does not mean that he does not have a gambling problem. The two men that committed the murder of James Jordan are named Daniel Green and Larry DeMurray, who allegedly killed James in an attempt to rob him and was found due to the mistake of using James' phone to make calls. These two men were only around 17 to 19 years old at the time when the murder and robbery occurred. But according to the conspiracy, it is a cover-up to cover the fact that the mob is involved in this. Jordan gambled a lot, and it isn't the fact that he does not have a lot of money that is the problem, but most of his money was in stock, and that denies fast access to his money assets, especially if you have huge gambling debts, and the ones we know about are a tremendous amount. But there could be a lot more that we don't know of. The lack of fluid money could have been the thing that led up to him not being able to cover up his debts and killing his father as a result of all of this. As we already know, Green and DeMurray was arrested for the murder of James Jordan, and Daniel Green was convicted at a trial in 1996, in which he denied to have killed James but helped DeMurray dispose the body. He also claimed that he wasn't there when the initial killing occurred. He was called upon when he was at a party, but admitted to disposing of the body and taking some of his stuff. Which could also lead you to believe, was it DeMurray who killed him, or was there other people involved? Is everything true, or is everything a lie? I guess that is the thing with conspiracies. You never really know. No one actually knows who really pulled the trigger, but both of them got a life sentence for the murder of James. So the final question is, did the death of James Jordan have anything to do with Michael Jordan's gambling and the mob? Matter of fact is this, we know that Michael had some kind of gambling addiction, and went to crazy heights with his gamblings. NBA launched an investigation regarding this matter and his father gets randomly killed. Michael Jordan was at the peak of his career and suddenly retired, and David Stern suddenly says he's clean after the fact. Michael has been known to have been associating with some suspicious types of people. Checks were found in a dead man's briefcase. Michael Franzese, who was working with the NBA at the time, knew that Michael had to leave for a while, but the plan was always for him to return. The craziest part is that all of these things came around the same time period. But there are a lot of gray areas. It's all speculation, but with a lot of reasons to raise suspicions. It could be that it just is a crazy coincidence. There isn't any evidence that supports this to be true. David Stern and Michael Jordan denies it, and at the end of the day Michael Jordan is really the only one who really knows what went down, and the conspiracy theory lives on.
Trophy in just a moment. An emotional moment.